Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming this afternoon and attending our third, which I know will be successful presentation, Employer Spotlight for the DNR. MRS and the Business Network Division welcomes you for joining us today for an exciting and enlightening Employer Spotlight with the State of Michigan Department of Natural Resources Park and Recreation Department, also referred to as the DNR P&R. This is session number 3 of the 3 sessions that we are have presented today. And session 3 will cover the Roscommon, Gaylord, and Western Eastern UP districts of the DNR PNR. There was a comment in the chat. If you are unmuted, could you please mute yourself? It seems as though I'm hearing something in the background. And if you are on camera, please turn your cameras off during the presentation. Thank you. Our guests will discuss the DNR's commitment to the conservation, protection, management, and use of state parks and harbors throughout Michigan. They're going to be describing a day in the life of a park ranger and/or a state worker. And they're also going to discuss DNA parks and recreation employment opportunities that may exist within your prospective areas. As a result of the reason why we're here today and to ask for you to be cognizant of background interruptions, we want to go over a few housekeeping rules. The first would be to make sure that, as I said before, turn off your microphones and your cameras so that everyone has an opportunity to hear properly, and there will be few interruptions for any type of feedback or interruptions on sound or visuals. We also want to say, please be patient with technology. Sometimes hiccups do happen, and just give us an opportunity to allow our administrators or presenters to correct any type of technical errors. At the end of this session, there is going to be an opportunity for you to ask questions live. In the meantime, throughout the presentation, if you have a question or a comment, you can put it in the chat. But when we do get to the Q&A session, please use the raise your hand feature, and I will call upon you, and you can actually ask your question live, either to the DNR in general or to one of the managers specifically. If you had a need for subtitling or closed caption, you can click the 3 buttons at the top. I believe it would be the right side of your Teams app, and you select that, and you will be able to enjoy those features as well. I just want to thank everybody for being here. I am going to turn this programming over to our DNR district supervisors for session 3, covering Roscommon, Gaylord, and the Western Eastern UP districts. Our presenters today will be Joshua Pello, Rich Hill, and Doug Rich. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. My name is Josh Pello, and I am the Roscommon District Supervisor for the Parks and Recreation Division of the Department of Natural Resources, also known as the DNR. My job is to oversee the managers and supervisors and the state parks that they care for in the mid-central Lower Peninsula of Michigan. We are excited to present to you today various job opportunities within the Parks and Recreation Division of the DNR. We have with us today several different levels of staff to display the range of job opportunities within our division. During this presentation, along with myself, you can ask questions to other district supervisors. I know Doug Rich from the Western UP District is joining us, as well as Rich Hill from the Gaylord District are currently on. Besides us three, we also have an accounting assistant from Bay City State Park and a park manager from Wilson State Park, both from the Roscommon District, that are here joining us. Each of us can tell our own story and what our job entails if you would like. Next slide, please. Oh, actually, back one slide. Sorry, I apologize. In this slide, you will see the DNR Parks and Recreation Division broke down into regions or districts, as we call them. Today, you will be presented with information about the jobs we have in the DNR Parks and Recreation Division. Many people think of the DNR as just one large organization, when really there are 8 different divisions that do many different things. Our primary focus today will be what we do in the Parks and Recreation Division. We're going to show you the positions we have in the DNR and a small breakdown of how time is spent. At the end of this presentation, we'll have plenty of time to answer any questions you have about the Parks and Recreation Division and the many jobs that we do. Next slide, please. In the Parks and Recreation Division, we are the largest of the 8 divisions in the Michigan DNR, with about 550 division employees, which include various classifications, including career state park rangers. Along with that, we hire nearly 1,300 summer rangers each season to help us run our parks, recreation areas, and boating access sites. We manage 103 state park and recreation areas with approximately 13,500 campsites, over 1,000 boating access sites, 10 lighthouses, 19 harbors, and 6 scenic sites. Our state park lands help to protect and preserve the biological and historical diversity of Michigan. More than 200 rare species of plants and animals are located on state park lands. And the Parks and Recreation Division also maintains 130 state forest campgrounds, along with 12,500 miles of motorized and non-motorized trails. Next slide, please. This slide shows the Roscommon District, managed by myself, with a breakdown of the state park and recreation areas and harbors within the Roscommon District. Next slide, please. This slide shows the Gaylord District, managed by Rich Hill, who was also on this call, broken down with the state parks and recreation areas and harbors in the Gaylord District. Next slide, please. This slide shows the Eastern UP District, managed by Eric Cowing, who was unable to join us today, broken down with the state park, recreation areas, and harbors in the Eastern UP District. Next slide, please. Unfortunately, we do not have the Western UP slide on here, but they also manage many state park, recreation areas, and harbors as well. So working for the DNR, most of our 550 classified division employees I referenced earlier started as an entry-level employee. This position is called a State Worker 4, and the job entails approximately 30% maintenance and operations of campgrounds, trails, day use areas, boat access sites, harbors, and pathways on state land, 30% revenue collection, 30% customer service, and 10% administration. Next slide, please. So as mentioned on the previous slide, the entry-level position in the DNR Parks and Recreation Division job classification, as listed by the Michigan Civil Service Commission, is a State Worker 4, or known in the field as an STW, STW4, or Summer Ranger. This position currently starts with an entry-level pay of $15 an hour, with a maximum pay of $16 an hour starting your 3rd year or summer. So as you continue to work each summer or year as a state worker, your pay increases. The job itself is typically for 40 hours per week, which are usually 8-hour days for 5 days a week, or some places even offer 10-hour work days for 4 days a week. Some locations do have part-time employment, which are typically weekends or some holidays. And our normal operating season for our State Worker 4s are mid-April through mid-October each calendar year. Next slide, please. So more information regarding the State Worker 4 position. The position is paid bi-weekly, which means every other week or every 2 weeks. If asked to work overtime, which is either more than 8 hours or 10 hours per day, or 40 hours in a work week, the employees are paid at time and a half of their starting wage. There are currently no benefits such as sick leave, holiday pay, or insurance in this position, but the position does receive accidental death coverage and is also covered by the workman's comp for any accidents that occur while working. Next slide, please. So after working as an STW for the DNR, many employees continue up the career ladder and obtain classified positions such as the ones I have listed here. Those are a Park and Recreation Ranger E, a Park and Recreation Ranger A, Park and Recreation Supervisors, Park and Recreation Managers. We also employ janitors, maintenance mechanics, laborers, and trades helpers. Next slide, please. More administrative jobs that our state worker fours become are general office assistants, accounting assistants, accounting technicians, or secretaries. Next slide, please. So I've talked a lot about the Parks and Recreation Division, but there also are 7 other divisions within the DNR besides Parks and Recreation Division. So the DNR in general is an agency of the state of Michigan charged with maintaining natural resources. The DNR itself has about 1,400 permanent employees and over 1,600 seasonal employees. So a breakdown of the other divisions besides Parks Division is the Forest Resources Division, which administers 6.3 million acres of mineral estate ownership. This division mainly consists of foresters who regularly examine trees, plants, and soil characteristics to determine the best management practice to keep the forest healthy. They have approximately 270 employees. The Wildlife Division manages and protects nearly 400 species of game and non-game birds, mammals, and their habitats, along with over 70 state game and wildlife areas. They make recommendations on hunting regulations, habitat management, and help provide public hunting access. The Fisheries Division works to preserve and enhance Michigan's fish populations, as well as other forms of aquatic life. This is done through monitoring and study by biologists specialized in the field of fisheries. They employ approximately 165 full-time employees. The Law Enforcement Division, or LED as we call it, includes our Michigan Conservation Officers, often referred to as COs. They are fully commissioned peace officers that are employed by the DNR and empowered to enforce all laws of the state of Michigan, with emphasis on marine patrol and enforcement of the state's fish and game laws. The Michigan History Center is our division that helps with our historical artifacts. They partner with Parks and Recreation Division with our historic sites and lighthouses. The Finance and Operation Division provides a complete range of financial and administrative support, including budget and financial services, real estate, procurement, grants management, facilities management, field operations support, and business operations. This division is heavily involved in customer service efforts for both internal and external customers. And then the last division is the Marketing and Outreach Division, which provides an array of services, including communication, website administration, license sales, marketing, and educational programs for all ages and experience levels. The division's efforts are designed to find creative, new ways to get more Michigan residents and visitors outside and taking advantage of a growing variety of recreation opportunities. Next slide, please. So in an earlier slide, I talked about the State Worker 4 position, which is our entry-level position in parks, and the percentage of job duties that they do. For the 30% maintenance and operations of campgrounds, trails, day use areas, boat access sites, harbors, and pathways on state lands, the employees are typically or could be asked to check and maintain and repair as needed grounds, picnic tables, fire rings, signs and posts, buildings, trees, benches, and other items as specified. Another job duty includes mowing grass, trimming around posts, cleaning and maintaining walking paths and buildings. Can also, another job duty, cleaning modern restroom buildings and vault toilets and performing minor repairs as needed on those buildings. Next slide, please. Continuing on with the 30% maintenance, employees also could be asked to perform staining and painting from the ground, ladder, or an elevated platform. Employees also, which happens a lot, are often picking up litter, collecting garbage, and picking up trash as needed, as well as checking the campground, our day use areas, our boating access sites and trails for hazards, correcting problems if capable, reporting all hazards, both of those which were fixed or not fixed, to their supervisor. Next slide, please. So as well, in the earlier slide, I talked about another job duty, which includes about approximately 30% revenue collection. In this job task, employees could be asked to work with our central reservation system for registering campers, selling recreation passport to customers, which is the entry for all motor vehicles that enter a Michigan State Park, adhere to the proper money handling procedures as established by the DNR. Employees could also have to deliver messages to campers, provide information to our visitors, keep information stations or our contact stations, our campground offices maintained and updated, and then keep payment envelope stations filled with supplies, which include envelopes, pens, maps, etc. of all of our facilities. Next slide, please. So another duty, about 30% of our job or of the job of a state worker 4, involves customer service. In this task, employees could be asked to interact with customers at campgrounds, day use areas, boat access sites, harbors, pathways, trails, and beaches. During this time, you could be sharing information, conducting surveys, answering questions, or even just providing assistance. Another task is being a representative of the DNR Parks and Recreation Division to and for the customer. A customer visiting our facilities, if they're not from the area, usually have questions about the park, the area they're visiting, surrounding area. And so you always need to be up to date on that information to provide it to our customers. And another task that could be asked is become knowledgeable of other state parks, forest recreation campgrounds, boat access sites, harbors, trails, and pathways. Our sites get a lot of use. And so at many times when facilities are full, when our visitors come visit us, but we're unable to allow them into our facilities, being up to date with local parks and where they can go and visit so they can have a day outside is highly recommended. Next slide, please. As well, in an earlier slide, I talked about the 10% duty of administration. Employees doing this could be asked to do completion of routine correspondence from park visitors requesting information regarding information, assist with administrative rule enforcement. Many of our rules, customers aren't aware of. So lots of the times we deal with dogs off a leash, dogs on a beach, glass on a beach. So we ask our employees to just, gain verbal compliance and talk to our customers on why we don't allow those activities. Also, employees assist with the completion of forms, which include accident reports, incident reports, daily camper registration reports, our cash handling reports, camping permits, lost and found, narrative reports, and any other reports as assigned. So once again, when you have a really busy facility, you need to have great written and verbal communication so you can pass it on to other staff members. Being that our facilities are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, good thorough notes and report writing is very key. Next slide, please. So the Michigan DNR Parks and Recreation Division is just more than camping, boating facilities, trail uses. We also offer 12 interpretive or visitor centers at various parks to help educate people on various aspects of the natural resources. And the 4 districts that we are talking about today, Roscommon, Gaylord, Eastern UP, and Western UP, we have 4 of them. In the Eastern UP district, we have the Tahquamenon Falls Education Program. In the Roscommon district, at Bay City State Park, we have the Saginaw Bay Visitor Center. Also in the Roscommon district at Hartwick Pines State Park, we have the Hartwick Pines Visitor Center. And then in the Western UP district, we have the Porcupine Mountains Wilderness Visitor Center. Next slide, please. So I do have another slide that was not included here, but it's in regards to current updates to our Michigan DNR Parks and Recreation Division facilities. So currently, we are experiencing what a lot of us like to call a once-in-a-generation investment in our Michigan state parks. We have received about $250 million investment into our facilities. That includes infrastructure upgrades such as electrical, plumbing, new toilet shower buildings, roads, a lot of great investment into our facilities. This money also is going to help us, as in the DNR Parks and Recreation Division, create a new Michigan State Park in the city of Flint. So in closing, this concludes the presentation that we've created for you today. And so do you have any questions for any of the DNR Parks and Recreation Division employees we have with us today? And if not, we thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you visiting one of our facilities throughout the Michigan State Park system soon.
Joshua, thank you so much. Great information, a lot of information. I'm sure with all of the sessions that we've had today and all of the additional information that you've given, talking about the upgrades to the parks are just more and more making all of us want to visit them just for on personal self, less alone understanding that it's a great organization within the state of Michigan to work for. We want to take this opportunity to give our audience participants an opportunity to ask questions of Joshua or any of his team members that are on the line. I do not see any questions in the chat, and generally that means that you've done such a thorough job of explaining things that there aren't any, there aren't a lot of questions raised initially. But if you do have a question that you are thinking about, haven't had an opportunity to put it in the chat, feel free to do the raise your hand feature, and then I'll call on you and you can ask it live of Joshua or anyone else here from the team. While you all are thinking about it or trying to figure out if you're anything like me, you had a question in mind and then you forgot what it was and now you're trying to remember it again. I'll just ask of you, Josh, and your team, a couple of questions that was asked earlier in the other sessions that may be of some interest. What is the age range for these positions within DNR as a regular worker, full-time worker?
18 years of age for the entry level. For the Park and Recreation Ranger E position that I mentioned in the classified, a lot of those positions are commission park rangers, and I didn't go into detail on that, but they have to go through a 8-week law enforcement academy so they can help in with law enforcement situations at Michigan State Parks. But for those positions, 21. But for the entry level position that I talked mostly about today is 18 years of age.
Okay, great. That's good information to know. And with that, does any of these positions require like a college degree or some type of certification just to get involved or, to start out with?
The entry level position does not require a college degree. I do not, and if please Doug or Rich or the other people joining us if I'm speaking incorrectly. I do not think that a lot of the positions that we have and that do require one. It's recommended. I think many of us do have some sort of education, but it's not required. And it looks like Casey Guizdala, who I asked to join us from Bay City State Park, has raised her hand. So Casey, go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. I just want to point out, a lot of the short-term workers we have sometimes do promote to the Ranger E's, entry-level Ranger positions, and a lot of them sometimes do not have an education or Parks and Recreation education. So sometimes a lot of their experience just, promotes them with that.
Great. We're going to have one of our internal consultants, Jennifer Hurst, come on shortly, momentarily, to talk about, our collaboration with the Summertime Youth Program. But for those who are already aware, which are probably quite a few counselors on the line, and maybe some participants who participated in the past, um, those individuals that work or have an opportunity to experience the summer work-based learning experience, do they have a greater chance, or is it a good fit for them to I shouldn't say a good fit, but probability when it comes to looking for full-time employment? How does that work together? What are your recommendation about that, and what have you seen in the past in regards to those summer work experiences turning into full-time employment opportunities?
So I would, in my career and also dealing with the MRS program, I have seen many students from the MRS program get entry level state worker positions, and I also have seen them also from a state worker position become a ranger. And Casey Wisdala on this call from Bay City, one of the employees works at her park there at Bay City State Park. I believe that was an MRS program, then became a state worker and now is a ranger. So as Casey mentioned, college degree not required. As I said, beneficial, but the hands-on, the boots on the ground experience that you obtain by working as an entry level state worker definitely helps to promote within up that career ladder.
So, if I'm not mistaken, you said Stacy was on the line, and that's how she came.
Or Casey, I'm sorry.
Oh, Casey. Okay, I'm
Yes.
sorry. If if Casey is on the line, if Casey, if you don't mind, we do have a few extra minutes. Is that something you would like to talk about, your experience of how you started as a summer
Oh,
worker
no,
and
oh,
led into?
I'm sorry. Casey was not one. They work at her location. I apologize.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Okay. Well, it would have been a great opportunity had that been
And
the case.
Jacqueline, just
Yes.
as a brief clarification statement, so Parks and Rec, we typically don't need the college degree. But if you're looking to get involved with forestry or wildlife or fisheries, they typically want a Bachelor of Science in either biology or forestry or something of that nature.
Okay. Good. And I will be putting the link in the chat for the DNR career page. I believe, I'm sorry, I forgot what the number, but it was over 100 positions that you guys currently have posted as of this morning. Maybe, definitely a smaller number in the DNR, but for park and recreation. But overall, you have well over 100 job opportunities on your website that participants can go and look into and get more detail about any position that they may happen to be interested in. Um, Rich, your hand is still up, but I think that's from your previous statement. Are there any other questions for our DNR representatives?
Actually, Jacqueline, I believe that was Rich Hill, so it was different than Doug Rich. I had his hand up.
Okay.
Go ahead, Rich.
No, thank you. I was just going to mention, and Doug kind of touched on this, but also just with the career path, with the degree, obviously any education that you get that's relevant to the experience certainly helps. But within most of our job classifications, there are some experience level equivalents that will help folks advance in their careers in a lot of other positions. And while I'm unmuted too, Josh touched on this a little bit. But there's also some other opportunities within the department and within our division. For example, we have folks that lead various programs within our agency. Also, analyst positions. We have some planners and that they're landscape architects, and so it's pretty broad of what we have out there. Even though we kind of showcased a lot of the entry level state park field positions here today, but really there's a lot of opportunity for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I know in a session earlier, I had asked a question because I know in our initial conversations in the Metro District, we were talking about jobs with DNR. Can you speak a little bit to all of the experience that you gain from working with DNR and how, if you chose not to remain employee with the DNR, like the type of skill and ability it allows you to go into several other career directions? So, like, if you do have a youth that's coming on from the summer, being that building block towards some other careers, wouldn't you like to speak on, where that opportunity can lead them to?
Doug or Rich, I'll let you go do that one if you'd like.
Yeah, no, be glad to. So one of the things that when Josh was breaking down the percentage of work that we do, hopefully one of the takeaway messages that you saw was working for the Parks and Recreation Division. It's your day-to-day job is very diverse. You go to work, there was a lot of mention to maintenance. There was some administrative duties, some cash handling duties, some public, dealing with the public, public service type work. When you get into our ranger positions, we have first aid, CPR certifications, law enforcement work. So with the real diversity of tasks that we do, if you didn't want to work for the DNR, a lot of that would translate, whether it be working in maybe some sort of construction, maybe it be working in a customer service field, because the daily job of a park ranger or summer workers, you're going to do a lot of different things. And I would like to add too that is, at least from my perspective, that's one of the real advantages of the jobs that we offer. Is your day is very different. Every day it can change, and even within one day, you could find yourself doing a variety of different skill sets. And so I think that really does help translate over into the private sector.
Right, exactly. And I think that's important to know. We have a lot of youth that are attending these sessions, and um, one of the things that interests me the most, and why I felt strongly about us doing a spotlight, is because a lot of people don't know that. And we go to have fun, but we don't think about the inner workings behind the scene and how advantageous what you do on a daily basis is for the state of Michigan. So we thank you so much, and we appreciate all that you do every day. And I was just saying at the other session, like, I love seeing how much you all love your work. It comes through when you talk about it. And a lot of you have, a lot of seniority with the state of Michigan within DNR. So that that lets you know something right there. They get employees, they train them well, and they keep them around for a while. So, is there anything that a DNR representative want to add that maybe hadn't been brought up? I am looking at the chat. I don't see any questions in the chat, and I don't see any hands raised at this time. So if there's no further questions for them at this moment, we're going to move on. But I just wanted to give you all an opportunity to have a final say if there's something you wanted to add. Okay. At this time, we're going to have one of our in-house consultants, Jennifer Hurst, to come in to talk about the DNR Summer Youth Program that they have in connection with MRS and how those dots are connected. Thank you, Jennifer.
Hello, thank you, Jackie. My name is Jennifer Hurst, and I am a statewide transition consultant with Michigan Rehabilitation Services. And one of my many duties that I do is I am a program manager for the DNR Summer Youth Work Program in partnership with DNR PRD. So in these next couple slides, I'm going to go over successes of the program and what the value has been with the partnership with DNR PRD. Next slide, please. So back in 2008, this program started with just one state park, one ISD, and 8 students, and one MRS counselor at that time. And so when they first started, they developed this program in providing opportunity for students with disabilities to work over the summer. And while they were working over the summer, they were learning those work skills, learning more about the park in their area, and also to how to really grow on further in what their education might be, where they want to go. So over the years, we are actually starting our 15th year in the program and have a total of 53 parks that are registered through the program. In the slide on the left-hand side, you'll see the state of Michigan with some green dots on it. That is just a quick reference to see where those parks are located at in the partnerships that we have in store for our students to participate over the summer. Unfortunately, you know, even though we have 53 parks registered, not all 53 parks will be participating this year. And it still is fluctuating due to COVID, but there's multiple reasons to why a park won't participate. It's strictly just there's not a relationship. It's going to be more need-based. Maybe there's students, maybe you know, there's some things going on in the park where they just choose not to participate over the summer, which is completely fine. So that's with part of our conversation when in ICTA, the interagency agreement gets put in place. And that actually started in 2018 to assist with drawing down some additional federal dollars to provide the service to our students with disabilities. Next slide, please. So while we're talking about capturing those federal funds, what we're doing is we are using these federal funds to pay us the student minimum wage. So they're actually learning what it is like to receive a paycheck, and also too, what is being taken out of that paycheck. So typically we have, you know, it could be 6 to 8 students, you know, just depending. It's flexible, but primarily the cap is 6 students per work site. This also too can fluctuate depending if there's more students interested in the program. If it's a larger park, we might see a little bit increase in the numbers of students. And that's where the parks work together with MRS and education to identify what that need is, identify the projects that students are going to be doing, along too with having a a skills trainer with the group and assisting and breaking down the tasks and everything that the students need. So that's what our federal dollars are assisting with paying. In addition to, with the budget, sometimes there's some additional services that our students will need to be able to participate in the program. And those are going to be individualized depending what that need is. If it's uniforms, if it's protection equipment, if it's transportation, you name it. Sometimes, you know, those where those other funds come from. So that's where we really look at, you know, providing a full budget. And our districts do go over that budget at times, just depending on what those individual needs are. Next slide, please. So as these students are working over the summer, they are, you know, learning a diverse mix of activities. And it was also stated here a little bit earlier of what those activities are. So the crews really get in and learn about all those jobs that was talked about earlier. They talk about, you know, what are those projects? They learn how to, you know, use tools safely. They have all these pieces that they can do. In addition to, our students are functioning as part of the DNR team. They feel that, you know, they're employees of DNR and they're not excluded out in learning the same tasks. In addition to, the visitors will, you know, see our students working. They make connections with the park visitors. They, you know, have those interactions with them. And, you know, and one of those things is building that communication. As we know, our students may struggle a little bit with that communication because they're mostly technology based. So this is helping building those skills and assisting with those what we call pre-employment transition services in those exploratory learning the work skills that is needed to be successful. along with learning the career path at DNR. So during the time, this program is it starts in January and probably ends, I would say beginning August, September. Even though the DNR has shared what their working hours are, we start communicating together early as January, talking about what are the what are the parks that are interested in participating, what are the MRS offices interested in participating, in giving an overview and really talking about the DNR program. And our students are, then, being provided some job exploration counseling where they're really looking at DNR. They're also workplace readiness, how to act at a work site, what to do, uniforms, behavior, any of those things that come out. Our students are learning pre-work. And so in behind the scenes, there's a lot of the administration pieces that is being done to solidify the budget, to solidify, the parks that are participating. And then really the work happens June through August. And those dates are going to be flexible. Typically, it's an 8 to 10 week program. But being that our students have different schedules across the state where the schools get out end of May, beginning June, go back to school middle August, so those are some of the flexibilities that this program has. And it's also too still in that peak time of our parks and being able to assist with those projects that are needed to be done. Next slide, please. So here you'll see 4 different lines. I meant to break this one out, but unfortunately I did not. So the first line that you're going to see at the top is student participation. That is the student numbers started in 2013. Now you recall I said we started the program in 2008. Unfortunately, I do not have any data from the program started in 2008, just that it was 8 students, 1 park, and an ISD. So that's where we started tracking the data when we, further advanced into the federal funding and being able to track how many students are being part of the program. Then we also, the next line is our DNR parks, where it shows how the number has grown with the parks participating. Unfortunately, COVID, you see the dip in all between student participation, DNR, MRS, and education. In 2020, we did have a dip in our numbers. However, it was still an exciting time because everything that we were going through with COVID, we were still able to execute the program with few sites, but we still had it going. So that was a pretty excitement, I would say, time in the COVID era. And so then since then, you see our numbers growing. So currently we have 11 MRS district offices that are participating in the summer experience this summer. And then we also too have 42 state parks that will be participating this summer, with 2 new state parks that have not participated in the past. So we're still growing, we're still, increasing those experiences. If there is interest in another state park, you always can reach out and we can start having those conversations and seeing the interest and the capability of the program. Next slide, please. So with that, if you have any questions or anything like that, please feel free to give me, you can call me, text me, you can email me, and we can have conversation about the program. I can share some additional information with you. In the chat, I will share our brochure that we created last year. It is also too on our website, but this is a good opportunity to really look at what are those sites that are registered. And if you are a participant, a student with a disability attending today, you can, reach out to your counselor and you can have that conversation to see if this is something that would benefit you in learning some work skills and having a work experience in the DNR PRD.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you so
Mhm.
much for coming in and connecting the dots for us. Just a couple things before we go as we come towards the end of this employer spotlight. You may have noticed in the chat, actually, there have been several links put in, one of which is for DNR employment opportunities overall. Joshua put in there a link for seasonal employment opportunities for the park worker. And as Jennifer stated, she's going to put some stuff in about the brochure, the pamphlet about the summer youth program, so that if you want more information, you can work with your MRS counselor to, to learn more about that and possibly toss your hat in the ring. They're waiting for you. This is the beginning of their big hiring season, so it's lots of opportunity for our participants. And last but not least, if you notice in the chat, there is a link to complete a survey or a QR code for our new age techies who like to use their phone a lot. Please, if you can, immediately after, complete the survey while it's fresh in your mind. We ask for you to participate and complete the survey because it's important to us to receive feedback about these events to make sure that we're providing great information or good information, and to find out where your interests lie for future presentations and employer spotlights. Um, if you are a counselor or consultant and you would like to have more specific information about anything that was mentioned today, or have any questions that come up with your customers that you would like more detail about, please feel free to reach out to myself, Jackie Smith, and Keisha Hall Dilligard. We have direct contact with the managers in the different regions of the DNR, and we can make sure that we get that information to them and steer you or lead you into the right direction for whomever it is the most appropriate person to follow up or answer any questions that you might have. And if there are no additional questions, which I don't see anything in the chat, I just want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your day throughout the entire day, particularly our DNR representatives, for being a part of this employer spotlight. It was so enlightening and so engaging. I just want to say thank you for your support, and everyone continue to have a good rest of your day and a good evening. Thank you for attending. Bye-bye.